Hey everyone, and welcome to the Town Board special meeting and work session for Tuesday, August 6th, 2019. Please rise and join me for the pledge, and then please remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, the events that have happened around our nation over the past few days are worse than sad and worse than shocking. I think we're all left with no words to describe the emotions that we feel, knowing that we stand here again, observing a moment of silence for innocent men, women, and children who were victims of a senseless mass shooting that our federal government has taken no substantive action to prevent. The tragedies we are experiencing are now unfortunately commonplace and have left many of us feeling helpless. We are also seeing examples of hatred in our own community, as what has been reported to be a noose was discovered in Lewis Angle Park last week. These disgusting acts are repulsive to all of us who work so hard in our daily lives to be accepting of all people, to make all feel safe and welcomed here in Ossining. Ossining has no tolerance for hatred. We will continue to advocate every day for all residents to feel respected, accepted, and valued. There have been preliminary discussions with local clergy in the village of Ossining about hosting a vigil at Lewis Angle Park to mourn the victims of the tragedies in El Paso, Dayton, and Gilroy this Thursday at 7 p.m. As we finalize details, we will be sure to share them with you. In the meanwhile, please join me in a moment of silence to mourn and remember our fellow Americans who lost their lives these past few weeks, and pray to whatever higher power you recognize that our leaders will take meaningful actions to preserve the heart and soul of this nation. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Meyer,
Present.
Councilmember Shaw,
Present.
Councilmember Wilcher,
Present.
Councilmember Feldman,
Present.
Supervisor Levenberg.
All right, so we're starting off this evening with public hearings, and we have a number of public hearings on local laws that are proposed. Visitors are accorded 1 4-minute opportunity to speak on each public hearing. We are having public hearings for 3 of the 5 proposed local laws concurrently, and those are for local law number 4 of 2019, abolishing the office of elective town superintendent of highways and creating the office of appointive town superintendent of highways, subject to a mandatory referendum. Local law number 5 of 2019, abolishing the office of elective town receiver of taxes and creating the office of appointive town receiver of taxes, subject to a mandatory referendum. And local law number 6 of 2019, abolishing the office of elective town clerk and creating the office of appointive town clerk, subject to a mandatory referendum. We've reached the end of the road with these 3 public hearings to replace the elected roles of town superintendent of highway, town clerk, and receiver of taxes with appointed positions. We've had all 3 public hearings open since February, and we are looking to close them tonight. We will continue to take feedback and share information as we come closer to the November election. And we are hoping and have reached out to the League of Women Voters to work with us on a forum to be hosted in September, and we'll have more information for you about that in the upcoming weeks. Please remember that the board passing these laws simply means that all registered voters will have a chance to weigh in on whether these ideas make sense to them at the polls. The vote remains in your hands. With that, is there anybody here to address the board on local law number 4, 5, or 6 of 2019? If anybody's here to address us on any of those local laws, please approach the microphone and introduce yourself. Council, did you have anything that you want to say? No, you're waiting. Anybody here to address us? I'm looking and I see no takers, so Council.
As you mentioned, Supervisor, the public hearing has been open for over 5 months.
At the last meeting, the board did discuss possibly voting to close the public hearings and move forward with the approval process because these laws are subject to a mandatory referendum, meaning they will be on the ballot in November. There are additional steps that will have to be taken, and it'll require coordination with various departments and the county. And so if the board was so inclined, there are resolutions on the agenda for this evening to consider adopting those local laws.
So can I have a,
I would do a motion individually to close each public
okay,
hearing.
so can I have a motion to close the public hearing for local law number 4, abolishing the office of elected town superintendent of highways and creating the office of appointed town superintendent of highways subject to mandatory referendum, and I believe this is a roll call vote, correct?
Not the closing of the public hearing,
Right.
the actual
Okay.
approval of the
Okay,
resolution.
got it, okay.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And could I have a motion for local law number 5 of 2019, abolishing the office of elected town receiver of taxes and creating the office of appointed town receiver of taxes, subject to a mandatory referendum to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? And finally, can I have a motion to close the public hearing for local law number 6 of 2019, abolishing the office of elected town clerk and creating the office of appointed town clerk, subject to a mandatory referendum?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you very much. Moving right along, we have local law number 7 of 2019 proposed amendments to chapter 74 of the town code entitled Dogs to regulate registration for and use of the town's dog parks. So this proposed local law has only changed a bit since the last iteration. We've gotten very little public feedback, although we have posted signs soliciting it at our dog park at Cedar Lane Park and dog run at Ryder Park. We are in talks with both the Village of Austin and the Village of Briarcliff, and most of the issues that remain pertain to the tags and licensing and timing of the licensing, making them administrative in nature, and we believe that they can be navigated. We also have this local law as an agenda item for our work session, so the board can share any feedback they may have received, and we can decide on next steps. However, I think that simply the act of codifying the longstanding rules and regulations for the dog park and dog run will be helpful to our residents and our law enforcement, as they will have a law to point to when a visitor and her or his human are not following the rules. So with that, is there anybody here to address the board on the dog park local law? Going once, going twice. Is there anybody on the board who wants to say anything? We are going to have it as a work session, so we can, any other
Okay, then
comments? Is that fine? Okay.
that's fine.
Okay.
So my sense is that the board is not in a position to close the public hearing this evening, as I believe you're still waiting to get more feedback, and obviously you're planning to have more discussion on it. So I'm not sure if there's going to be a legislative session 2 weeks from now, or if the next legislative session would be the 27th. So if the board wants to, you can make a motion to adjourn the public hearing to be continued at your August 27th legislative session.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have local law number 8 of 2019, amendments to chapter 180 of the town code entitled Taxation to implement the solar energy system pilot law of the town of Austin, New York. I'm going to turn this over to Council Tomadonna for the comment before we accept comments from the public.
So under real property tax law, section 487, solar energy systems are exempt from taxation, meaning that the added value to the property from the system existing is not taxable. This is because this is in order to encourage solar and other alternate forms of energy. It does give municipalities the option to opt out of this, in which case it would be fully taxable. But if municipalities don't opt out, it creates an opportunity for a middle ground whereby legislative boards of the municipalities can decide whether they want to enter into pilots, payment in lieu of taxes agreements with specific solar developers in order to bring in some income related to the existence of the system, but not to the level that it would be if it was fully taxable. So the way the statute is worded, the board can decide this on a case-by-case basis for each developer that comes in. However, we've had discussions with NYSERDA, and they've suggested the possibility of adopting a local law that would basically lay out a template of what a pilot would be for any solar developer that comes in, and this would create information for developers from the outset of what they're looking at if they're going to do a solar development in the town of Ossining. This local law would only be for the town's taxes. The town can't legislate for the other taxing jurisdictions, who would have to decide on their own whether or not they would want to adopt this local law or enter into pilots on a case-by-case basis. So one of the things we had talked about doing is possibly reaching out to the other taxing jurisdictions to let them know the town is doing this and see if this is something they would want to consider also. Like I said, we had some conversations with NYSERDA, and they had recommended the payments that are set forth on the third page in section 6, subsections H and I. And it says that the annual payment shall be for solar energy systems with a capacity greater than 1 megawatt, $9,000 per megawatt of capacity multiplied by the corresponding town percentage of applicable taxes, with the understanding being the entire amount would be $9,000, but then the town's portion of that taxable amount that goes to the town would be what the payment would be. And then there would be an escalator, 3% per year, starting with the annual payment. Under state law, the exemption for solar energy systems only exists for 15 years. And so as a result, this state law also sets forth that any pilot agreement with the developer would only be for 15 years.
And after 15 years, it would be taxed as the added value to the property, or it would be not taxed?
In 15 years, if the municipality does not decide to enter into a new pilot, then it would be fully taxable.
Okay, so that was a great sum up, and I appreciate that very much. And it's something that we, again, learned about as we were adopting our solar code last year. And I'm just going to open up the public hearing to comments. If there's anybody here to address the board on the proposed local law number 8 of 2019, please come up to the microphone here, introduce yourself, and please limit your comments to 4 minutes.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry that you're staring at my back. My name is Julia Maglioso, and I'm here representing EcoG Energy. EcoG is a solar developer based in Brooklyn, New York, and we are currently looking at developing a project here in the town of Ossining. The project would be a community solar photovoltaic system in a canopy structure over a parking lot. So that is some background on us. We are very glad to be working on this project in the town because, as Supervisor Levenberg mentioned, we know that you have one of the more progressive solar codes that is very amenable to developers working here. So we're very glad to be doing so. So on behalf of EcoG, I would like to speak on the solar energy system pilot law that has been proposed. Now, we do recognize the importance of fair tax payments, both for ourselves and for the town, and we understand your motivations for the solar pilot. However, we believe the town can do more to use the solar pilot law to encourage favorable solar development. So first, the size of solar energy systems matters greatly because smaller systems do not benefit from the economies of scale of larger systems, meaning that smaller systems cost more for us to develop on a cost per watt basis. The draft of the solar pilot law does define the annual payment for systems larger than 1 megawatt AC, which implies that systems smaller than 1 megawatt AC may be exempt from the pilot law. However, EcoG received notice that our system, that is only 660 kilowatts AC, would be required to enter into a pilot and so would not be exempt. So we would encourage the town to make an explicit exemption from the solar pilot law for systems smaller than 1 megawatt AC, because without such an exemption, projects such as our own cannot be financed and cannot be undertaken by this town, which would be a true loss. Second, consistent with the existing solar regulations, it is our belief that preferred land use for solar includes solar rooftop and solar canopy systems over paved surfaces, because these are spaces that would otherwise remain unoccupied. On the other hand, large-scale solar ground mount systems on green fields are an undesirable land use because they detract from natural resources by requiring cutting of trees, and they prevent the other uses of those otherwise open greenfield spaces. Unfortunately, many solar developers focus only on these large-scale ground mounts because they're inherently cheaper to develop than rooftop or canopy systems, whereas we focus on the rooftops and canopies. So to better incentivize preferred land use, we would suggest the town make distinctions between land use types for systems larger than 1 megawatt that are going to be required under the solar pilot law. Specifically, the town should set an annual payment for rooftop and canopy projects larger than 1 megawatt that is 50% of the other large projects' payments. This will encourage solar developers to prefer these types of preferred projects based on land use despite their higher costs. And finally, as an experienced solar developer, Ecog knows that 70% or more of our revenue from a solar energy system is fixed over the 20-year lifetime of that system. And in addition, solar panels degrade at approximately 0.5% per year, so our production decreases slightly. This means that our overall solar revenue is fixed or at worst declining over a 20-year time frame, which means that we would not be able to enter into a pilot that requires a 3% annual escalator, because in the later half of that pilot, we would not be able to make those payments. So for this reason, we suggest the town remove the 3% escalator from the solar pilot law because we believe other developers would be subject to the same constraints. Given these remarks, we encourage the town to exempt all small solar systems under 1 megawatt AC from the solar pilot law, to decrease the annual payment for solar energy systems over 1 megawatt DC with preferred land use to 50% of the proposed value, and to remove the escalator from the solar pilot law. This will encourage preferred types of solar development in Ossining while still bringing payment benefits to the town for the other types of solar systems. Thank you for considering our comments.
Thank you very much. Anybody else here to address the board on the proposed solar pilot local law? Going once, going twice. Council Tomadown.
If the board is inclined, obviously those were substantive comments that you may want to look into, and also perhaps get some feedback from NYSERDA or other agencies with specialized knowledge of this field. So as with the previous local law, if the board is inclined, you can make a motion to adjourn the public hearing to be continued at your August 27th meeting.
I would like to.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so moving right along. Announcements. Earlier today, I attended a meeting with Police Chief Kevin Sylvester, Captain Jeff Giorgio, and our partners in the Village of Croton and Town of Cortland, Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff, representatives from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, state parks, forest rangers, and some neighbors and citizen patrol/stewards regarding the piece of property along the Croton River known as the Unique Area. This is a popular hangout during the summer months. On the weekends, there are often many safety, environmental, and quality of life issues that are associated with the high number of visitors coming to this very small piece of property without adequate parking, supervision, or enforcement. We, the Town of Ossining, Ossining Police, Village of Croton Police, and Village of Croton, Town of Cortland, Westchester County Police, State Police, let's just say Westchester County Police, and the neighbors have all been trying to do our part, and State Police, to monitor the area. But we are advocating alongside Assemblywoman Galiff for the state to dedicate more enforcement and financial resources to this area that is under their jurisdiction, because the Unique Area is state forest land, which is overseen by the DEC. Our meeting today was attended by several representatives from the DEC's many departments, which was encouraging to see, and I'm hopeful that we will collectively be able to pursue a solution to the situation. So stay tuned for more information about that, but please do know that we have been working hard together on enforcement and coming up with solutions to limit the number of people who are able to access the area, just because there's a lot of people. Okay, Food Truck Fridays and the Summer Concert Series are back this Friday, August 9th, with the Old Mill Singers and Elisa Pimer as the opening act. The music starts at 7 p.m., but you're not going to want to miss the food trucks starting at 5 p.m. The following Friday, August 16th, will be Taj Weeks and Adoa. You might remember Taj Weeks and his band from last year. They are an awesome reggae band, and I highly encourage you checking them out in a couple Fridays from now. There are just a few Fridays left. Plan on coming down to the waterfront every week. And we do anticipate that we're going to have some more and more interesting food trucks that keep coming for the rest of the summer. We received some fantastic news last week. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation's Hudson River Estuary Program and Cornell University selected Ossining to be the host community for their Climate Adaptive Design Studio for the fall 2019 semester. The Climate Adaptive Design Studio is a semester-long course that's created by Cornell Department of Landscape Architecture Associate Professor Joshua F. Serra, and it links students with Hudson River communities to explore design alternatives for more climate resilient and connected waterfront areas. That's a mouthful, but it's true. The CAD Studio assists municipalities in evaluating their waterfront and developing a vision for integration of diverse uses in ways that are visually appealing, highly functional, and resilient to flooding and other climate-related risks. The town and village of Ossining were chosen to host the fall 2019 CAD Studio through a competitive application process that was open to all Hudson River Estuary waterfront communities. We submitted a letter of interest in the spring and found out earlier this week that Ossining was chosen as the host site after a thorough review of all applicant communities, and big thanks go out to Victoria Caffarelli for all her hard work on this grant application. The Ossining CAD Studio will feature the work of third-year graduate students and will take place from August through December of 2019. The studio will include 3 site visits for student designers to learn more about Ossining and meet with the community stakeholders who will help to guide their work. So stay tuned for the solicitation for community stakeholders. The CAD Studio is supported by the Cornell Water Resources Institute with funding from the Environmental Protection Fund through the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation's Hudson River Estuary Program. We will be sharing information in the coming weeks with more details about the program and how you can get involved. It's a unique opportunity for us to think differently about our waterfront and how it can better adapt to our rapidly changing climate. And we're very grateful to the CAD team at Cornell and Hudson River Estuary for selecting Ossining. Get ready. Tomorrow is Ossining Day at Playland. That's right. On Wednesday, August 7th, Playland will celebrate Ossining with special discounts. With just proof of Ossining residency, you will receive discount coupons when you arrive at the park by going to the Fountain Plaza Administration Building. These discounts include 1 free mini golf entry, 1 2-for-1 ride admission, 1 free beach or pool admission, $1 off of 1 food value meal, and a $5 discount for parking on a return visit to the park. So that's incentive to go back there another day. I hope you'll consider taking advantage of these discounts and enjoying a day of fun at Playland. To prepare you for Ossining Day, we have had a special visitor from Playland in Ossining who's still at the front desk at the Joseph G. Caputo Community Center. It's Coaster. Go say hi and don't miss the opportunity to take a selfie with Coaster and tag #HeyCoaster before he leaves our community on Thursday. Tomorrow evening is the 3rd block party hosted by the Ossining Schools and the Ossining Police Department. This week's block party will be held on Croton Avenue right in front of Roosevelt School from 5 to 7 p.m. I had the opportunity to attend the first block party, and I'm so proud of Superintendent Ray Sanchez and Chief of Police Kevin Sylvester and their teams for bringing together great resources for the community in a fun and inviting way. I hope you'll consider stopping by tomorrow. And there are some great Mind, Body, Spirit Ossining events coming up this Saturday, August 10th. Head down to Lewis Engel Park for Zumba with Sue Radpivar of Studio 95 Zumba at 4 p.m. Her fun class is great for participants of all ages, and she really makes you sweat. Next week is jam-packed with Mind, Body, Spirit Ossining offerings starting on Wednesday, August 14th for Sunset Yoga at 7 p.m. with Alicia Simpson of Crossover Yoga Project at Engel Park to celebrate Global Yoga Therapy Day. Alicia will then be back at Engel Park on Saturday, August 17th at 9 a.m. for more yoga at the waterfront, and UMAC Briarcliff will be doing a lot of fun activities, kicking and punching safely at Ryder Park at 1 p.m. on Saturday too for Taekwondo. Please register in advance on the recreation website to be notified in the event of a weather-related closing, and also you get to qualify for raffles and giveaways from UMAC Briarcliff and Club Fit Briarcliff at the end of the summer. But as always, walk-ins are welcome. And that is it for my announcements. My board colleagues, might you have anything else? We had a wonderful fire department parade. Our department was sparkling as usual, and all of our first responders were out and as was the community. It was a beautiful evening in Ossining, and we're glad that everybody got home safely. Anything else?
Next year's a county convention.
Next year's the county convention, so it's going to be even bigger, even better, even longer. Get ready. Make sure you
And
get out of the way and don't get stuck downtown. That's all I have to say. In your car, if you want to get out. Okay, so with that, next up we have liaison reports. Are there any? Hearing none, we have our departmental reports, and we have here this evening Kathy Asaro, who's our nutrition site director, and she's going to tell us all about what our seniors have been up to these past few weeks.
Good evening. Our seniors have been happy. They love their new cars. Yay. We've been fighting for space with the camp, camp going on down there too for the this is the last week of camp. So we've been rearranging their exercise classes. We had one of our seniors turn 100
Wow, that's exciting.
in May. Yep, he turned 100. And we had an awesome time at Cedar Lane Park, which
Yes.
the weather was so much better this year than last.
It was still hot, but
We had, yeah, it was good though. It was good.
It wasn't unbearable.
No, it wasn't. The music was good. They had a good time. We had our cultural competency class for the staff, which was very informative, very interesting. They liked that, the staff. We also have our farmers market coupons from the county, $20 at the farmers market for eligible seniors.
Now is the best
Come
time.
and get them.
Go to that
Yep.
farmer's market. They got
Come
a
on
lot
down,
of great
$20
produce
free. So, anybody who's eligible, lives in Ossining, Briarcliff, 60 and over, come get them.
down there. Fantastic.
That's it.
All right. Food delivery continues.
Food delivery's still going on. We're still bringing more seniors in. We're getting more seniors actually to come in. We're talking to some of our homebound actually coming in for farmers market coupons
Nice.
and seeing what's going on, and they're starting to come on in. Got a couple of them sign up to come in Monday.
That's great.
So it's better. They're better off coming in than sitting home. They need, to come in and socialize. It's better.
And how's our
Get
Are You
depressed.
Okay phone calls going?
Are you okay? Phone calls? Okay.
Are you?
Yeah, everyone's fine so far. Yeah, I think some of them, the only person they talk to is me every day. So,
How many calls do you make on average?
about 20, 25. Depends on the day. Weekends, some of them don't want to call because they're with family. But about 20.
And they just sign up with you?
8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. They sign up. It's free. I'll call every day, Sunday through Friday, Saturday. Just checking in,
Okay.
making sure they're okay. And if I forget to call them, they call me. Are you okay?
Just a reminder. So you forgot me. We don't get you that often, so just a reminder.
They
Can you
do.
just talk about some of the just everyday services
Every
that
day.
you guys provide?
Exercise programs. We have chair yoga, tai chi, dance, art, bingo. Oh my God, bingo is their favorite. Today they went to the casino, one of the trips, senior trips. Back
I'm
to the
missing out here.
casino, they love.
There's a lot of great summer trips that are
Oh,
sponsored
yeah.
and sort of provided through the village
The
recreation.
recreation
because
department,
They
yep.
need to find a place for camp, and the seniors then kind of get this to go elsewhere.
Exactly.
So a couple of the other programs that you've been to this summer are did you see the movie?
Cedar Lane Park, they went to the movies.
Right.
This is their second trip to the casino because they love it there so much.
Okay.
They went on a boat ride.
Boat ride.
Where else did they go? Cedar Lane picnic.
Right.
I think that's
Shopping
it.
sprees?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Just a
We
regular
take them on shopping sprees
Right.
to Walmart or
Okay.
the dollar store.
Okay.
That's their favorite place.
Right.
Caller cab coupons are $3 each. They take you within a 3-mile radius of town of Ossining, which includes Briarcliff. You're allowed 15 per month. And they're $3 each, $45 for 15. 70. You have to be 70.
Have a good heart. Them guys, those people are
Yeah,
crazy.
70 for 60 to eat and 70 for taxi coupons. Most people that are 60 are still driving anyway, so and a lot of people that are 90 are still driving. So yeah, they use them
You're
for
gonna have
emergencies.
We're
Yeah.
gonna have those safe driving programs for them.
Plus, they have us to pick them up and bring them in for lunch, so you don't need a taxi coupon for that.
Right.
Just give us a call. Come on down.
All right, fantastic.
762-1350. Give us a call. Come on down.
Any questions or comments from
Stop it.
our town council?
Oh, thank you for continuing the good work that you do and making sure the seniors have a interesting, engaging place to be during the day and make sure that they have at least one,
One
meal
hop, yeah.
they don't have to cook that's, healthy and provided for them. And I think the OK calls are very important. And I'm always thankful that our community has that.
Mhm.
And the taxi coupons, I know a lot of seniors who really take advantage to, get to their local doctor or to their hairdresser appointment. And that way they feel a little more independent and don't have to call on their family to get them somewhere. And it makes it a little bit easier if they can't drive anymore. So I think that's a great program too.
Thank you. And on Wednesday, if they come in for lunch, they can go shopping to ShopRite.
So every Wednesday you take them to
Every
ShopRite?
Wednesday.
And when
Yep.
do you take them to
It's
the dollar
senior
store?
discount day. Not during the summer. There's too many vacations going on. We don't have enough staff. So probably in September.
But you do have a great staff of people who
We do.
drive buses and vans, who take meals to our seniors, who offer social services, prepare food for them, and remember all of their dietary restrictions. And there are quite a lot of them. And
Oh, yeah.
somehow it seems to me like your staff seems to know everybody individually, the people who come every day. And, I think you guys just do such a phenomenal job
Thank
connecting
you.
with their seniors, making them feel important, making them feel welcome here in our community. And they really feel like, that's a home away from home for them. So
Really
we
is.
want to just thank you and your entire staff, and please pass that on.
Thank
to
you.
the town board.
I will. Thank you very much.
We also just want to give you a little update. We had applied for a grant for our bus, and we actually received the grant through the CDBG program through the county and the Urban County Consortium. We are now at the point where we have gotten the
Yeah, we
Okay, go ahead.
provided the bid specs to the county because the county,
Mhm.
these are part of this consortium. They provide some of the bid
They prepare
administration.
right.
And so we have sent them the bid specs of what we're looking for, and they're going to be presenting it, waiting on some final approvals from the Board of Legislators, and then we'll get a contract and we'll be able to get a new electric bus set up for you guys.
Which we anticipate
Another couple
is
months.
a few months out
Yeah.
once we actually get an approved bid, and then
Right.
we'll go out to bid. Once we get an approved bid that we accept, we will then order the bus, and we'll be on our way.
Sounds good.
One lift.
One lift.
One lift,
two
Two
wheelchairs.
wheelchair.
Wheelchairs.
Yeah.
Right?
That's good. Sounds good.
Fantastic. Thank you so
Thank you.
much, Kathy Asaro. We
Thank you.
appreciate your time coming out tonight. Okay, with that, we have public comment on agenda items only. If there's anybody here to comment on any of the items on our agenda, please approach, introduce yourself.
Good evening, Supervisor, Council members. My name is Sharice Jervis Hill. I'm the president of Events to Remember, and I'm here with my colleague, Barbara Gips. I'm here with regards to the Mark Seiden real estate team. They're having their upcoming client appreciation event. We submitted an application for the Ryder Park Pavilion that was approved in January. Just want to give you some information about the event and answer any questions that you might have. So it's a client appreciation event. It's a carnival theme. We're going to have 3 10 by 10 tents with 6 carnival games such as ring toss, no inflatables. We're going to have face painting. So you smile. Huh? Yes. Yep. No, we paid attention. So Ranger Rick, he has a nature awareness school up in northern Westchester. He's going to be coming down with small animals. They'll be in cages, and he'll have them to talk to the children about the animals. We have a dunk tank. We're asking for a $2 donation, and the best part, you get to dunk Mark Seiden. All the proceeds from that dunk tank will be going to New Beginnings of Westchester. It's a nonprofit organization that provides assistance for homeless families. We have a table for United for the Troops. I'm not sure if everyone is aware, United for the Troops is an organization that sends care packages to our troops. So we're going to have a table there so kids can make cards and things like that. We have a couple of sponsor tables that'll be there. There's no selling, no products, just mainly giveaways. It's going to be a barbecue lunch, ice cream truck, raffles. So it's really just a fun family day. The event is complimentary for clients of the Mark Seiden Real Estate Team for all of their clients and their families. They are charging a small fee for the general public is welcome to come to the event. It'll be a great event. A lot of activities. Once you're inside, there's no cost for any of these activities. So the small fee is $6 per person. Once we, just to kind of give you some of the kind of background, once we submitted the application in January, we kind of tightened up the day, firmed up all of the details. Was speaking with Bill Garrison and kind of went through the day with him. He told us that we would need to fill out a special event permit because of the pricing. So we included that on there, that it was Mark Seiden Real Estate Team, what the costs were going to be, very transparent about the day. We run a full service event management, so we keep everything really tight. I know there was some concern about the day. So again, wanted to come here to just let you know that it is a great day that's being planned for Ossining, and just answer any questions that you might have. I know that there was another event where there was a fee charge, so we just want to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We have this on our agenda to approve this evening, and there was a concern that was brought to our attention by a community member that there was a charge for some people that were going to be attending. The response from the applicant was that there was an event there a couple weeks ago where that was, I guess, a reunion for maybe for Austin High School that was charging $20 a head, and they believe that this is comparable to that because anybody could come, but they had to pay $20. Just so you're aware, town board, this wasn't brought to our attention that there was going to be a fee charged. It was just a reunion, like many reunions, and birthday parties, and all sorts of events. It was as part of the application. It just said, that they were having a high school reunion. So it wasn't something that would have risen to our attention to talk about. The Seidens did apply for this to rent the pavilion early in January, as many people do at the beginning of the year when they're looking to settle their events. And at that time, the way that the event was presented by the recreation department, which is usually where we get this from because the application goes through the recreation department. So the superintendent would alert the town board if there were anything that rose to the level of special event. at the time, it was presented that this was just going to be a client appreciation day. It didn't have any mention of open to the public. And then as time progressed, it seemed that there might be some food trucks and some games and carnival like structure, and that maybe there was going to be open to the public. And there was going to be a different structure for clients and other people. So before we approve it, I just want to make sure that the town board is on board with this, and that you don't have any issue or concern about charging a fee for anybody that's coming. It seems that, that is part of how they would cover any the additional costs for food or whatever for people who aren't specially invited. We had suggested that they do this as a suggested donation versus an actual charge, and they didn't want to do that. So that's where we're at right now.
They will donate any proceeds if anything is left. I mean, this event is obviously very costly for them.
She means instead of 20, like a $10 charge,
No,
it's
it's a
$6 charge to come in. It would be a $6 suggested donation to come in.
Correct. They did not
Then
want
it
to do
wouldn't
that.
be a fee, and they chose not to do that.
They said they don't want to do that. They just want to call it a fee.
How are you going to determine, where are you going to have someone posted to determine who's invited and who is paying the $6? How's
So
that process going to work?
So it's for their clients, so we'll know who we're asking them to pre-register, and they know who their clients are. They have a client database. So once we're on site, we'll have a laptop available and we can search. But at that point, I would say 90% will be registered already. So
Will you check as soon as somebody enters the park, or once they get to where there's a setup?
I'm sorry, repeat that for me.
Will you be registering or checking people in as soon as they enter the park, or once they get to the pavilion?
Once they get to the pavilion, yes.
Because they're not renting the whole park. They're just
Right.
Yes,
no, I
just the
just wanted to
pavilion.
make sure.
Yes.
area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure the rest of the
They
park
won't be able
is
to get
usable.
into the
parking
event
lot.
unless they check in first.
Yeah, we'll have them check in the beginning.
Got it.
Anybody else have any questions?
Is there a way to, for the future, like the surprise of the reunion that they were charging, is there a way to amend the application or
Yes.
something? Because I'm personally not a fan of charging to enter the park. That's my personal thing. And I don't like the surprise of, oh, by the way, we find out a week later that there was a charge or something and it wasn't in the application. Is there a way to amend the application so we're not surprised, so at least we're like looking at these from this is all the information kind of view?
It's an excellent suggestion and one that has absolutely been discussed, and we will do that because I know that.
I mean, I did see that event on Facebook, and it was a donation toward food. It wasn't like, charged to come into the park.
But I would have liked to
we're all
see that
gonna-
on the application, and it was not.
You're saying for the reunion,
For the reunion one, yeah.
correct? Right?
We pulled a lot of, I have documentation. We pulled information just so we were prepared for this meeting. And it was a charge, $20 per person. And it didn't really, it says that there's no affiliation to any of the schools. It was an individual who hosted this event. And again, great event. I'm not trying to take away from the other. I just want to make sure that everything is fair. That's, just present you with
Again,
all
I
the
think that
details.
exactly for that reason.
Mhm.
An individual hosting an event for whether it's a reunion, a wedding, a birthday party, or whatever, doesn't typically rise to the occasion of being considered. It's like asking your friends, can you help me pay for this? Versus, a business that is also using this as an opportunity for marketing. Because, you can't deny that that's part of what this is. I mean, client appreciation is a thank you to your clients. And then you're also trying to make your presence known and to do good things in the community, which we love. But it's different that now you're also saying, but also, by the way, we want you to help offset the cost for the event that we're hosting as part of our marketing event. So I think it's different. It's not
different.
just for clients.
Mhm.
It's different than an individual hosting a party for their friends that all graduated the same year or whatever.
But they still paid though to come.
Again, lots of people pay things, but it's not. It's a different event. That is different. You're having a carnival that you're inviting people to come, the public to come to for the specific reason that you want to
Promote your business.
Hmm?
Promote your business.
promote the business
And thank your
thank your clients. I think it's different. So, again, that's the distinguishing factor. Is there any, does the board have any other questions?
I have one question.
Sure.
With the $6, how many shots do you get to try to dunk Mark?
But that's a
Just
separate,
asking for a
that's a separate $2 donation for the dunk tank, right? So,
But
anybody
that's
wants-
not. But that's going directly
Correct.
to
I
a
understand. I
not-for-profit.
understand.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
not included.
Oh,
I'm
or
just saying,
$2 a shot.
Dunk tank
Yeah.
not included, right?
And that'll have a long line. We know that.
Isn't it, isn't it up to the individuals? Only you know what your cost is going to be. I mean, you may not even know right now. You might have to.
Well, we have an idea because we paid for deposits to all of these different vendors. So it's yeah.
So then, if you have to imagine, you'll have. Let's just say you have 100 people. So if you underestimate or overestimate, whose business is that?
What, $6 a person?
I'm just saying, your $6, whatever it covers, it covers it. What it doesn't, it doesn't. But that's not who am I to say anything against that? You made the mistake either way. If it's wrong, I mean. So I just don't understand if the people that paid $20 to come to their family reunion, if they wanted to charge 30 and the people wanted to come, why not?
Well, their clients would be coming free. This is other additional people from the public wanted to come.
Well, then
And clients and their clients. So my daughter wants to bring, if I'm a client and my daughter wants to bring her friend is welcome to come. So it's, it's more of, I mean, it really is community, and it's a lot of fun activity. So we do want to make it open to the public. We do want the public to be able to come in and bring their kids and have a fun afternoon on a Sunday.
And
So
it sounds like a nice event to have new homeowners meet other new homeowners.
Absolutely.
And meet each other. So
yep. So is there anything else, any other questions that I can answer?
My comment is I just don't understand why it wouldn't be a suggested donation. If you want the public to attend, then why charge the fee? Why not just have a suggested donation so maybe people who can't afford it can attend?
This is something that I spoke to the Mark Side and Real Estate team, and they would rather not have a suggested donation. They would rather donate whatever proceeds to a specific organization and tailor it to the same way that the other event was held. So that's what they did. They had their fee, and then they donated the proceeds. So they would rather do the same thing. They didn't have a suggested donation, so just rather do the same thing that they did.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public on agenda items only? If not, we will get into our board resolutions.
Okay. Approval of minutes, regular meeting, July 23rd, 2019. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby approves the July 23rd, 2019 minutes of the regular meeting as presented.
We have a motion.
so moved.
second,
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Approval of voucher detail report. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated August 6, 2019 in the amount of $81,519.69.
We have a motion.
So moved.
second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Finance audit, Town of Ossining 2018. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby acknowledges that in accordance with Section 35 of the General Municipal Law, the 2018 audit of the Town of Ossining financial statements and supplementary information has been distributed to and reviewed by the Town Board, and said report shall be on file with the office of the Town Clerk.
We have a motion.
So moved.
second,
So at our last meeting, Rob Danielle of O'Connor Davies came to share the good news about the town's finances. We'll be posting the 2018 audit and the 2018 Justice Court audit on the town website later this week. Any discussion? Should I ask for a motion?
Mhm.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Finance Justice Court Audit, Town of Ossining 2018. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby acknowledges that in accordance with Section 35 of the General Municipal Law, the 2018 audit of the Town of Ossining's Justice Court financial statements and supplementary information has been distributed to and reviewed by the Town Board, and said report shall be on file with the office of the Town Clerk.
Motion.
Move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Contract for Revaluation Services 2020, Tyler Technologies. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Austining hereby authorizes the supervisor to sign an appraisal services agreement with Tyler Technologies, Inc., 1 Tyler Way, Moraine, Ohio, 45439, as per the agreement dated August 1st, 2019, and in response to the request for proposals issued by the Town of Austining for the 2020 townwide revaluation of properties.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So earlier this summer, the town put out a request for proposal to perform new town-wide revaluation, as was suggested by Town Assessor Fernando Gonzalez, in order to keep us on track with the state's recommended timeline for revaluations. We received 2 responses, and Tyler, with whom we worked on the last reval, submitted a proposal that impressed us and was a better value for the town. We have more than enough money to pay for the cost of this contract in the capital project left over from the last reval, and we expect work to commence within the month. Just as a reminder to residents, you will hear much more about this process as we get closer to launch, but rest assured that this go-round will be less invasive than last time, and we already have a fairly strong baseline to work from. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, resolution adopting local law number 4 of 2019, abolishing the office of elective town superintendent of highways and creating the office of appointive town superintendent of highways, subject to a mandatory referendum. Whereas the town of Austining has the elective office of town superintendent of highways, and whereas New York municipal home rule law allows the town board to abolish the elective office of town superintendent of highways and create the appointive office of town superintendent of highways to be appointed by the town board, subject to a mandatory referendum. And whereas in the era of the tax cap and in an effort to reduce and or avoid increases in property taxes, municipalities are looking for any and all opportunities for savings, and whereas many other municipalities, including in Westchester County, have abolished elective offices, and whereas a public hearing on the proposed local law was duly noticed, opened on February 26, 2019, adjourned to and continued at many subsequent town board meetings, and members of the public having had the opportunity to be heard, the public hearing was closed on August 6, 2019. And whereas said local law has been on the desks of the members of the town board for at least 7 days, exclusive of Sunday, prior to the adoption of this resolution. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. 1. The town board hereby adopts and incorporates the recitations and statements set forth above as if fully set forth and resolved herein. 2. The town board finds that by abolishing the elective office of town superintendent of highways and creating the appointive office of town superintendent of highways, A, the town board will have more flexibility to make offices operate more efficiently and conserve financial resources, and B, the town board will have the ability to ensure sufficient qualifications of the individual in this position and provide regular oversight and accountability to ensure the duties of this office are completed as cost-effective, efficient, and responsible of a manner as possible. 3, in accordance with the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the town board finds that this is not an action that has the potential to affect the environment. Notwithstanding such, this is a Type 2 action and does not have the potential to have any significant adverse environmental impacts, as the Office of Town Superintendent of Highways will continue to exist and provide all of the same services to the town and its residents. 4. This local law is subject to a mandatory referendum that shall be submitted for the approval of the electors at a general election to be held on November 5th, 2019, and will only become operative if approved at such election by the affirmative vote of a majority of the qualified electors voting upon the local law. 5. The town board, after due deliberation, finds that it is in the best interest of the town to adopt said local law, and the town board hereby adopts local law number 4 of 2019, a copy of which is attached here to and made a part of this resolution. 6. The town clerk is directed to enter said local law in the minutes of this meeting into the local law book for the town of Austining, to publish said minutes in a newspaper published in the town, if any, or in such newspaper published in the county in which such town may be located, having a circulation in such town, and affidavits of said publication shall be filed with the town clerk, and to file a copy of said local law with the Secretary of State of New York. And 7. The supervisor, the town clerk, and any other applicable town employee or official is hereby authorized to take any and all necessary steps to facilitate the enactment of this local law.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So I wanted to remind everyone that accepting the next 3 resolutions simply adds the question to the ballot this November. If you believe that changing these elected offices to appointed ones is a bad idea, let us know at the polls. We will continue to discuss this topic all the way up until the election, so stay tuned for more information We will continue to accept your feedback, even though the public hearings have been closed. Before, I just had one question for council on this, which is about the entering, it is filing with the newspaper. That happens prior to the electors voting for or against.
The local law states it only goes into effect after after the election.
Okay.
So,
So it's filed with the Department of State and everything? all
yeah,
those
it just
pieces?
wouldn't go into effect
I see.
until, if it's approved at the election.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so.
Okay. Yes. Councilmember Meyer,
Aye.
Councilmember Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Wiltshire,
Aye.
Councilmember Feldman,
Aye.
Supervisor Levenberg.
Aye.
Okay. Resolution adopting local law number 5 of 2019, abolishing the office of elective town receiver of taxes and creating the office of appointive receiver of taxes, subject to a mandatory referendum. Whereas the town of Ossining has the elective office of town receiver of taxes, and whereas New York municipal home rule law allows the town board to abolish the elective office of town receiver of taxes and create the appointive office of town receiver of taxes to be appointed by the town board subject to a mandatory referendum. And whereas in the era of the tax cap and in an effort to reduce and or avoid increases in property taxes, municipalities are looking for any and all opportunities for savings, and whereas many other municipalities, including in Westchester County, have abolished elective offices, and whereas a public hearing on the proposed local law was duly noticed, opened on February 26, 2019, adjourned to and continued at many subsequent town board meetings, and members of the public having had the opportunity to be heard, the public hearing was closed on August 6, 2019. And whereas said local law has been on the desks of the members of the town board for at least 7 days, exclusive of Sunday, prior to the adoption of this resolution. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. 1. The town board hereby adopts and incorporates the recitations and statements set forth above as if fully set forth and resolved herein. 2. The town board finds that by abolishing the elective office of town receiver of taxes and creating the appointive office of town receiver of taxes, A, the town board will have more flexibility to make offices operate more efficiently and conserve financial resources, and B, the town board will have the ability to ensure sufficient qualifications of the individual in this position and provide regular oversight and accountability to ensure the duties of this office are completed in as cost-effective, efficient, and responsible of a manner as possible. 3. In accordance with the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the town board finds that this is not an action that has the potential to affect the environment. Notwithstanding such, this is a Type 2 action and does not have the potential to have any significant adverse environmental impacts, as the office of Town Receiver of Taxes will continue to exist and provide all of the same services to the town and its residents. 4. This local law is subject to a mandatory referendum that shall be submitted for the approval of the electors at a general election to be held on November 5th, 2018, and will only become operative if approved at such election by the affirmative vote of a majority of the qualified electors voting upon the local law. The town board, after due deliberation, finds that it is in the best interest of the town to adopt said local law, and the town board hereby adopts local law number 5 of 2019, a copy of which is attached hereto and made a part of this resolution. 6. The town clerk is directed to enter said local law in the minutes of this meeting into the local law book for the town of Ossining, to publish said minutes in a newspaper published in the town, if any, or in such newspaper published in the county in which such town may be located, having a circulation in such town, and affidavits of said publication shall be filed with the town clerk, and to file a copy of said local law with the Secretary of State of New York. 7. The supervisor, the town clerk, and any other applicable town employee or official is hereby authorized to take any and all necessary steps to facilitate the enactment of this local law.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Okay, Councilmember Meyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Shaw.
Aye.
Councilmember Wiltshire.
Aye.
Councilmember Feldman.
I just wanted to say one thing, that I absolutely agree with this going to a vote. I think it's important to go to referendum. Not all of us agree on all of these, but I agree that the public should decide, and my vote is aye.
Supervisor Levenberg.
Aye.
Okay. Resolution adopting local law number 6 of 2019, abolishing the office of elective town clerk and creating the office of appointive town clerk, subject to a mandatory referendum. Whereas the town of Ossining has the elective office of town clerk, and whereas New York municipal home rule law allows the town board to abolish the elective office of town clerk and create the appointive office of town clerk to be appointed by the town board subject to a mandatory referendum. And whereas in the era of the tax cap and in an effort to reduce and or avoid increases in property taxes, municipalities are looking for any and all opportunities for savings, and whereas many other municipalities, including in Westchester County, have abolished elective offices, and whereas a public hearing on the proposed local law was duly noticed, open on February 26, 2019, adjourned to and continued at many subsequent town board meetings, and members of the public having had the opportunity to be heard, the public hearing was closed on August 6, 2019. And whereas said local law has been on the desks of the members of the town board for at least 7 days, exclusive of Sunday, prior to the adoption of this resolution. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. 1. The town board hereby adopts and incorporates the recitations and statements set forth above as if fully set forth and resolved herein. 2. The town board finds that by abolishing the elective office of town clerk and creating the appointive office of town clerk, A, the town board will have more flexibility to make offices operate more efficiently and conserve financial resources, and B, the town board will have the ability to ensure sufficient qualifications of the individual in this position and provide regular oversight and accountability to ensure the duties of this office are completed in as cost-effective, efficient, and responsible of a manner as possible. 3. In accordance with the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the town board finds that this is not an action that has the potential to affect the environment. Notwithstanding such, this is a Type 2 action and does not have the potential to have any significant adverse environmental impacts, as the office of town clerk will continue to exist and provide all of the same services to the town and its residents. 4. This local law is subject to a mandatory referendum that shall be submitted for the approval of the electors at a general election to be held on November 5th, 2019, and will only become operative if approved at such election by the affirmative vote of a majority of the qualified electors voting upon the local law. 5. The town board, after due deliberation, finds that it is in the best interest of the town to adopt said local law, and the town board hereby adopts local law number 6 of 2019, a copy of which is attached hereto and made a part of this resolution. 6. The town clerk is directed to enter said local law in the minutes of this meeting into the local law book for the town of Ossining, to publish said minutes in a newspaper published in the town, if any, or in such newspaper published in the county in which such town may be located, having a circulation in such town, and affidavits of said publication shall be filed with the town clerk, and to file a copy of said local law with the Secretary of State of New York. And 7, the supervisor, the town clerk, and any other applicable town employee or official is hereby authorized to take any and all necessary steps to facilitate the enactment of this local law.
Do I have a motion?
Move.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Meyer,
Aye.
Councilmember Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Wiltshire,
Aye.
Councilmember Feldman,
Aye.
and Supervisor Levenberg.
Aye. And I would just like to thank Council Tomadonna for a tremendous amount of work on these local laws, and also to thank my board colleagues on this. There have been many, many talks about this, and we're, as mentioned, happy to continue the conversation with the public. We've been tasked to talk to as many people as we can about these local resolutions, and every opportunity I know that I've had, I certainly talk to people about it, and I anticipate that all my colleagues will be doing the same. Whether we have an opportunity to talk to our seniors, our Rotaries or Elks, chambers we've talked to, and we will continue to do so. And again, any help or questions that we have, please keep them coming, and we'll have more information for you about any public forums coming up.
Okay. Permission to sell alcohol at Town of Ossining Concert Series, Croton Tapsmith. Resolved that Croton Tapsmith is hereby authorized to operate a concession stand on Friday, August 16th and Friday, August 23rd at the Lewis Engle Waterfront Park in the Town of Ossining, and to sell for consumption by persons over 21 years of age, craft beer, wine, and cider. And be it further resolved that Croton Tapsmith will also obtain all necessary permits, including an event permit from the New York State Liquor Authority, and will provide proof of insurance and the letter of indemnity to the town in a form acceptable to council to the town.
Do I have a motion?
Move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Just want to mention we're excited to invite Tapsmith to Food Truck Friday and the concert series. They will be joining us for 2 of the remaining 4 Fridays with a curated selection of craft beer, wine, and cider. Make sure to stop by and check out what they have on offer.
Resolution approving Ryder Park Pavilion application for Mark Seiden Realty. Whereas the town's Ryder Park has a pavilion that the town rents out to the public for concerts and other events. And whereas the town has received an application from Mark Seiden of the organization Mark Seiden Realty, the applicant, to hold a special event on September 22nd, 2019. And now therefore be it resolved, the town board hereby approves the applicant's application to hold an event between the hours of 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. on September 22nd, 2019. And be it further resolved, the granting of this application does not bind the town to any future action or set any precedent with respect to the applicant or pavilion/park rentals generally, and the town board will continue to assess each application on a case-by-case basis.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Just since we have somebody in the audience, can you just confirm that 12 to 4 is the time for the event? Is that correct? Okay, because I had seen something earlier that it was longer than that. Okay. Okay, thank you. So just typically, park rental applications go through our superintendent of recreations, but when it's believed that the event is somewhat out of the ordinary, it's referred to the town board as a special event, which requires a resolution of approval. And since this event is a little larger, as discussed earlier in our public comment, and it's a little larger than typical at our pavilions, and the applicant proposed a dunk tank and an animal show and a somewhat unique structure for payment, which will require them to charge any visitors to the event that had not been explicitly invited. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew what was involved, and I appreciate you coming out, Sharice, this evening and discussing that with us. I also want to just say thank you to Mark Seiden Realty. They have been a sponsor of our summer concert series, the Food Truck Fridays event, and we very much appreciate all they do for the community. Council, is there anything that you want to mention as regards to any of our discussions leading up to this evening? And then if the board has any final comments before we take a vote.
I think the board pretty much hit on what the potential issue was during your discussion. You know, the fact that the fee is being charged, the resolution does provide that the town board will continue to consider each application on a case-by-case basis. It is going to be available to the public, which I suppose is a benefit. However, the distinction between this type of event and the other one that it was being compared to is that it's not, the fee isn't being applied across the board to everyone. So, you know, if it may be something for the board to look into going forward, if there need to be some additional regulations, if the board feels so inclined to address that. But that would be the only distinction I would see, or one of the distinctions I would see in terms of the fee for this event versus other events.
Yes, and you had checked earlier because we asked about that question, that there's nothing in our code.
There's nothing in the code that precludes it.
And I just want to make sure from our previous rec and advisory board member and now Councilwoman Jackie Shaw, if there were anything that had ever arisen from that advisory board.
I don't recall. I don't recall anything coming up.
Fantastic. So then, with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Nay.
Okay, fantastic.
Next, correspondence to be received and filed. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining hereby accepts the following meeting minutes. Town planning board dated May 15th, 2019, and town planning board dated June 19th, 2019.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I abstain. I wasn't on the board at that time.
Oh, well, it's
Okay, that's fine.
okay. Monthly reports. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining hereby accepts the following monthly reports for the month of July 2019. Supervisor's office, clerk's office, and tax receiver's office.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And visitor recognition on any item at all. Going once, going twice. Thank you very much. Okay, so now I'd like to take a motion to adjourn into work session.
So moved.
Second.
Really? What a surprise. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, so first up, we have Zeke Mermel from Sam Schwartz Engineers here to present plans he has been working on with the town to restripe North State Road for a bike lane, making our business corridor more bike and pedestrian friendly. Before I turn it over to Zeke, as you may remember, we've been working hard for the past few years to identify ways to make town of Ossining, the village of Ossining, and the town of Newcastle more bike and pedestrian friendly, and ways to connect our business districts with the North County Trailway, which is the Empire State Trail in our area, as part of a Hudson River Valley Greenway grant we received in 2016. After many discussions with our municipal partners and stakeholders, North State Road kept coming up as low-hanging fruit for bike lane implementation. It is relatively wide, it is owned and maintained by the town, and is within close proximity to the North County / Empire State Trail. With additional grant funding we received to becoming a certified clean energy community with NYSERDA, we were able to really focus in on North State Road for short-term implementation with restriping and signage. And we brought Sam Schwartz Engineers on board because they're experts in the area to develop drawings that we could bring to fruition by the end of 2019. Just this morning, we met with several North State Road business owners and our police chief, Kevin Sylvester, to discuss the plan. And some ideas and concerns were raised, some of which we were able to address and incorporate in time for this presentation this evening. So now I would like to turn it over to Zeke Mermel. Thank you so much for coming up this evening from the city to describe in more detail all that you have been hard at work on for these past few months. And I'm going to swing aside so that you can have the screen.
Well, first of all, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to Supervisor Levenberg, as well as all the council members for having me here tonight. It's a pleasure to meet with you all. I'll briefly mention before we get into the presentation itself, I'm an urban planner, urban designer. I work for Sam Schwartz, which is based here in New York. I've worked in a variety of bicycle, pedestrian, transportation projects. So this has been a really robust process, and I really wanted to recognize all the great work you all have been doing so far, as well as that MOGO's been doing. On that note, while we go through the presentation, we have some handouts for you all. And we're going to get into it about halfway through. There'll be a slide where you'll see more context about this. On that note, let's start. So, the project, as you all may know, was the culmination of all the grants that you had gotten. The Clean Energy Communities Grant, New York State Greenway Grant, and so that was our beginning point. Where myself and my coworkers, Mike Flynn, as well as engineers at Sam Schwartz, we first looked at some documents. We met with you all, with the task force, with other stakeholders, and we reviewed these 4 documents. Of course, the most important, it was really great learning about the project backgrounds with MOGO. Okay, so here is a map that we created showing the bicycle priority corridors in the town. North State Road is this orange line here, about a mile long from Chappaqua Road all the way up to the town boundary with Newcastle. The North County Trailway is this green line here. And we had spoken with supervisor as well as others about having a loop, and we can get more into that. North State Road. We've been studying the project corridor for a few months now, so it's been a process where we've looked at some cross sections, and by that I mean that we consulted in this room with the MOGO task force, other stakeholders, to develop really what the community wants. In just taking a step back, it's about safety, it's about comfort, it's about low stress for bicyclists, pedestrians, motorists, public transit users, and we really wanted to minimize costs and give you something that's technically feasible. So that led us to this, where we opened the floor up a few months ago for people to comment on which options would be of use to you. And on the left, I won't go into them in much detail, but these are short-term options. And we started with kind of a low-hanging fruit, not doing too much. And as you go to the right, things get a bit more robust with more design solutions. And then we have a longer term set of options. And these are all different cross sections where North State Road is changed. And the metrics that I referred to a while back, they're all kind of plugged in here. Okay, so as you all know, this is North State Road, one lane of travel in each direction for cars. There's a bit of a shoulder, and then there's sidewalks in each side. So here is the preferred option we're proposing. And this was the result of speaking with the task force, speaking with many of the officers in town, speaking with other industry leaders, bicycle planners, coworkers, etc. And we wanted to deliver something that's low cost. On the bottom here is a kind of a metric. We also wanted something that was feasible, meaning the curbs here aren't changed. So this is a short-term solution, meaning that you can hit the ground running, have some paint applied without much of a cost relative, and have a bicycle lane system. Bike lanes on both sides, signage directing bicyclists along the road. And you might notice that prior we had 11 feet for the existing. We're narrowing it down, and I'll get into that in a quick second. So this brings us to what you have in front of you, the signing and striping plan, which is the detailed plan. And these are the specifications for your contractor, the annual bidder that you have to install the plan. And the plan, this is short term again. On the top of every page is the existing condition. On the bottom of every page is the proposed. And of note, there's no parking, as I'm sure you all know, on street on North State Road. So we're not changing that. So no parking on street is being reduced. Signs will stay. We just didn't show the signs on the bottom for visual clarity on this set. Speaking of signs, you'll see these green signs on every page. Those are wayfinding signs so that bicyclists can get to and from the trailway safely and comfortably. Also, a quick note on here is this is all low cost, easy to implement, meaning that the center lines, the double yellow lines, are all kept. So all along North State Road, we're not touching the markings that can stay to reduce costs. So what we're really touching is the white lines on the shoulders. Going back to here, here's where they were, here's where they'll be. And this extra width is allowing for a bicycle lane on each side. Last thing, on this is that high visibility for pedestrians. You'll see these crosswalks at Chapel Road, and it's similar to the crosswalks at 9A, where they're higher visibility for motorists to see pedestrians. And speaking of high visibility, here on the left is what we call a bicycle box, which is dedicated space for bicyclists to take a left onto Chapel Road safely in front of cars, so that they're more easily identified by the cars. And then last thing on this page is the connection to and from your tourism hub, your economic development potential. By that, I mean the Empire State Trail, which is North State Trailway, North County Trailway. And we have shared lanes, which are bicyclists and motorists are all aware of each other on Chapel Road, as well as on the last page in the handout, North State Road north of the town boundary into Route 100. And while you're flipping that, the second to last page shows a transition where the 2 bike lanes on each side is not enough width. So again, we're having the shared experience there. Now about traffic safety, this was a concern that came up this morning, and through the project, we really wanted to make sure that because of a lot of auto repair shops, a lot of car lots, construction activity, we really wanted to make sure that bicyclists are safe and feel safe on North State Road. So here we show some infographics that basically show that reducing miles per hour makes the chance of surviving a crash for a pedestrian much more likely. It's incredible that just a few, going from 40 to 30 to 20 miles an hour is a big difference in survivorship. So hence, throughout the handout you have, there's signs saying 25 miles an hour. We're proposing a change to the speed limit along this section of North State Road from the town limit of 30 to 25. And here, I won't get into it too much, but this is the driver's perspective. As you're driving along at the steering wheel, you actually see more as you're going slower. So to go from 30 to 25, it's called the field of vision. And this has been studied in other parts of the county. And that's one of the reasons why we think that despite all the auto repair shops, a lot of trucks, etc., that we can produce tangible results for safety. So this is the long-term vision, and this could happen when you're maybe taking a utility out, doing some repair, sometime in the future, past the grant timeline. And what we're doing is we're widening the road by 4 feet in this illustration to allow for a wider bicycle lane. The bike lane in the short term is within industry standards, but this you get a little bit more width, which allows for additional safety. 2 different options. On the right, you have a plastic post, similar to the ones that you have in downtown Ossining. On the left, it's a little quicker, a little cheaper, less maintenance because, as you might already know, during the winter, this might be a little tough, but it provides some protection separating bicyclists from cars. Here's another long-term option we're still looking at to give people a choice. We separated the bicyclists off of the road with a mixed pedestrian path with bicyclists. That way it's even safer. You have a tree providing protection, a curb, so they're separated out. Okay, so now the fun part. We were honored to have been invited to Green Ossining Earth Day event a couple months ago. We set up a booth and we made these boards where we communicated with the public. We had a couple dozen residents stop by. We had great discussions. It was great to get all the feedback. And this is one of the activities where those 2 options I showed you a few minutes ago, people got to see what we're proposing and commented on the pros and the cons of both. As you can see, it was we had some unofficial votes, a little bit more for the separated path, but still there were people who liked the more traditional bike lane on the left. Another part of Earth Day engagement was we had residents fill out comment cards to be sent to New York State DOT, Department of Transportation, because they're doing a project, as you might know, along Route 100, which is fairly close to North State Road, in having essentially a road diet, and then the trail, which is the North County Trailway, aka the Empire State Trail, improving that. And so we thought this was a great opportunity for some extra safety benefits. So we collected comments from all the residents, just kind of for them to have a direct pipeline to the design team at the state DOT. So This is a draft, a preliminary draft brainstorming. This is just some ideas we were discussing. So there's about 60 or so curb cuts, i.e. driveways, along the project corridor in this mile. We think that that's currently not ideal for safety because, as you can imagine, the more driveways you have, the more potential for conflicts between drivers going in and out of these driveways, and bicyclists and pedestrians. So we think that in general, reducing curb cuts, getting rid of extra driveways that businesses might not need could be potentially helpful. Again, this is just for brainstorming. We're not saying, hey, you need to do this. This is just to kind of get ideas flowing for more predictable turns and less conflicts. So back to the Empire State Trail. This is the last main section. So we took a look at the document, the trail document. There were some great nuggets in there. This is about gateways and trailheads. And essentially, the state's encouraging that to happen. Now, here in Ossining, we have this tremendous economic development opportunity, tourism, get bicyclists, joggers, whomever off the trail onto North State Road, which is right next door. And we think that that can provide, we spoke about it this morning, more clientele for the businesses along North State Road, more business. For example, an auto repair shop on North State Road could have bike repair. And at Chapelco Road, correct me if I'm wrong, but the town owns some property, and then that could become a hub of information, advertising, or directing people to not just North State Road, but to specific businesses. So not just bike repair, but also cafes people could stop at, all the restaurants along North State Road. It could really become a destination. This just kind of speaks more to it, where here's the trailway. And of course, people have to cross over Route 100 to get to North State Road. So we identified conflict points in terms of traffic that one would have to get across on a bike, walking, or even on a car, in a car. So we looked at these intersections. Again, this is where the state DOT project is. Here is the improved North County Trailway, Empire State Trail, in North State Road. How do you connect safely to it? Well, we have crosswalks that are wide, high visibility, meaning these thick white bars make it easier for drivers, especially if they're speeding, to see. And we have these new islands we're proposing, which have refuge for slower walkers if they can't get across by the time that there's another car. We do think that there's a need to study whether or not a traffic signal should be added to North State Road at 100 for purposes of getting, drivers in and out of North State Road, for the safety of slowing cars down as if we have a lot more bicyclists and pedestrians going across, all the more reason. And then there's the bus stop there. And then we have the shared shared bicycle vehicular markings going to our project site a little bit down the road. This is long-term. So short-term, long-term. We're continuing that separated bike ped path we talked about earlier, keeping that concept all the way to the trail, a one-stop shop to get off the roadway and onto the trail. This is the last intersection we looked at across Route 100. Here's the trailway. This is the parcel area that I talked about before, where there could be some kind of informational kiosk. Imagine you're having a great time, you're bicycling along the trail. You see the trailhead with information about to visit North State Road. You're directed along the road here. There's an existing traffic light, of course. You get across the crosswalk, and then the shared markings to North State Road. Here's a longer term concept where we, because of this forest here, it's relatively straightforward to add a side path, but then it mixes back with traffic on the other side. And then this is long term, where you've got a separated path along Chapel Road. Of course, because Chapel Road is very windy, twisty, hilly, getting up to North State Road. So thank you everyone for your time, and glad to take any questions.
Have you talked to any of the neighbors about moving the driveways, sharing driveways, different flow of traffic in and out of the businesses? Have you had any of those conversations? Or this is just identifying the ones that you think could be had?
So we, this morning at the merchants meeting, we met with all the merchants along North State Road. We did show this slide. It was discussed. And I think that's the first time we've publicly shown it.
I think, again, this is, so the proposed signage and striping plan is the piece of the plan that we would need board approval to move forward with, and is part of the grant, where we said that we would implement a plan. The other pieces of it are all concepts and suggestions, and I don't think we have a plan right now how we would move forward. But having presented it to the businesses, I think that the next step would probably be to involve our planner to work with the local businesses to look at options. This is something that kind of came off, if you guys remember, the Strode presentation. Yeah. Not all of you, but maybe some of you, yes, from Jared Rodriguez, probably over a year ago, where we looked at how we could make the street safer and also more conducive to pedestrians specifically, and sort of meandering and walking, by making the setbacks smaller, putting parking behind, reducing curb cuts, etc. And this, I think, that was sort of like bounced off of that. Making it safer would be reducing curb cuts. I think that there's some really easy ones that probably a lot of businesses would even consider, and it might be just something that we take on. Again, we had the Chamber of Commerce there this morning, the Austin Chamber of Commerce there this morning, and as we talk about additional plans for beautification on North State Road and making it more attractive for in general. I think these are some of the conversations that we would start having with our local businesses. And
right, that's my question. So to make it more attractive to people walking and biking and stopping and enjoying it, if every other second you weren't crossing a driveway, I was just wondering if you had started the conversations with the businesses about approaching that. Okay, good.
And one more note about these driveways is that when we looked all up and down the corridor, we identified places where driveways could be narrowed, but kept driveways that are critical, driveways that you might have two wide driveways going into one business, or two businesses that are adjacent to each other. So we were kind of suggesting, if we do this, then suddenly you have a less potential of an unpredictable, car speeding into a parking lot as a new bicyclist who came over here getting in a potential conflict.
Similar to what they do on Central Avenue. They have only so many openings to the parking lots, but the parking lots serve a lot of different businesses. I get that.
Who would do the curb cut?
You mean the uncurb cut?
Curb restrictions.
That's a good question, and I don't think we have the answer to that yet.
I just had one kind of related comment, because Supervisor, you had mentioned bringing the town planner into this. A lot of these businesses and properties probably have approvals, site plan, subdivision. I can't say how many, obviously, but that probably also contemplated internal circulation and access. So that would have to be something that would need to be looked at too.
And I'm sure that's why it is the way it is, probably because of our own code or something that requires in planning that there's entrance and egress, right, for a certain number of cars, making it easier. So again, I think that's something that we discussed even way back with Jared, that a lot of times we need to look at some of our codes to see if they need to be amended to reduce this instead of add to it as we continue to develop any place in town.
And we were speaking about these property owners, these businesses, and just we spoke about the economic benefits to businesses of bicycle trails and bike infrastructure. We shared this slide earlier that had quoted some reports saying that 2/3 of business owners said that they saw an increase in gross revenue due to their proximity to a trail, a bike trail. There's a trail in Philadelphia that generated $7.3 million dollars in direct economic impact along its route. And higher property values is something that was discussed in these reports, saying that local residents benefited from these trails by upping their property values. And this was the ULI, which is the Urban Land Institute that some of you might know of, as well as other reports. So there's some great research out there. Last note that bicyclists they found spend more on average per month during their visits to stores than if you're arriving by car. So it's some more business for the businesses.
So just
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask, you, the, the village or town can't raise or drop the speed limits.
the town can. The town can raise this. We can lower the speed limit with if we get input from our police department, which we actually have.
Okay.
The town, I think, can set that speed limit because it's a town part of the road.
We can confirm that, but I believe that's the case.
I don't know if we get the full benefit of this if Chappaqua Road is kind of the long term, because I know a lot of bicyclists and I live off of Chappaqua Road, and that's a tough road to bike. I've done it. It's scary. So I think more people would love to get to North State Road, but Chappaqua Road is just going to be a barrier. And also, I don't think, again, living there, I don't think if you change the speed limit to 25 that people are going to actually drive 25.
So that actually came up this morning at our business meeting, and our chief of police was there, and he talked a little bit about enforcement. Said, enforcement you usually do reasonable. So to give somebody a ticket for going 40 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone may or may not be that reasonable, even though it's obviously excessive. But giving somebody a ticket for 40 in a 25-mile-an-hour speed zone is reasonable. And certainly gives our law enforcement would give them more teeth to enforce reasonable speed limits on that road. One of the things that I think we heard most, which is what I was going to mention, from our business owners, concerns was about truck traffic. We obviously, we have suburban carting on that road, which is our carting service that we use in the town. So they're up early in the morning. We have a lot of construction businesses that cater to construction. We have Bobcat. We have a lot of auto repair shops on that road, and auto body. And so we definitely have a lot of truck traffic. We have, somebody shared with us that they're concerned because the ambulance uses it as a corridor. It seems, based on the information that we're getting, that the combination of reducing the width of the automotive lane, as well as signage and striping for bicycles, as well as reducing the speed limit, all of those pieces together would add to greater awareness for other people on the road. I mean, I don't know if any of you have spent any time in New York City in the last few years since they started adding bike lanes. And we know that there's a lot more people cycling now because they feel that that's an option. Obviously, they've also instituted city bikes and all sorts of other kinds of programs to incentivize walking and biking. We also know that there's more cyclists, so there may be more accidents because there's more cyclists per day, per mile, per whatever. But starting somewhere, making roads safer for cycling and for pedestrian access. If that's a goal, we have to start somewhere. We have North State Road is a flat, wide road that that's within the MUTCD guidelines, which are the federal guidelines for traffic for road.
Signage for, there's also ASHTO, which is another guidebook we use nationally. And we feel that 10 feet wide is an acceptable width by these national standards that we mentioned for this particular speed.
So again, with all of those different pieces, we think that we're actually going to slow traffic down, make it more conducive to cycling, make it easier for it's a first step. It isn't the
Right.
final
Yeah.
step. It is not the only step.
I just wanted to speak to what Jackie was saying. I think that the first part of what we're trying to do is get people from the trail to North State Road, so that one tiny piece of Chappaqua Road is more doable,
Right.
much more doable than the section that tries to bring us into the village of Ossining. So as a first step, I think, getting that loop done and getting it, that one little tiny section of Chappaqua Road would maybe introduce people that are on the bike trail that there's ice cream here, there's air for your tires,
Every little bit helps. I
there's a
agree.
lot of stuff, there's pizza, there's, all kinds of great stuff. And we might become a destination just for ice cream the way, the Starbucks in Yorktown is, people are like, oh, we'll ride up this far because, we can get this and then go back. So I think it might be an incentive and then we can kind of work from there.
And also just
But the rest of Chappaqua Road's a nightmare.
was it last week we went up to Poughkeepsie to meet with New York State DOT because they've taken an interest in further consideration for New York State Route 133. Again, for the nature of the east-west connections between downtown Ossining, old Croton Aqueduct, Briarcliff Peekskill Trailway, other open space assets along Route 133 and the Empire State Trail, Metro North at the one end, downtown Ossining at the one end, Millwood, Newcastle, Empire State Trail at the other end, with the town in between. They're very interested in that as maybe a demonstration project that can be looked at for other east-west access up and down the corridor along the Empire State Trail. And they were considering it for possible funding for additional money to do further engineering studies. And again, find ways to improve our roadways. The Village of Austin, I believe, has adopted complete streets. I don't think we've done that yet. The County of Westchester has adopted complete streets. Doesn't mean that they always abide by their own policies because they're difficult, but every little bit helps. I know a lot of us are familiar with Underhill Road, which was recently repaved, and when they repaved it, they put shoulders, they striped shoulders on it. Some of us live on Underhill Road and or the extension thereof.
Mm-hmm. And all of the pedestrians feel a lot safer. I've gotten a lot of feedback on that.
Yeah.
And even my dog walker, doesn't help me pull out of my driveway.
And all that is striping, okay? And will we slow people down? Yes. Will they be more considerate? Yes. Is it going to be the be all and end all? No. But if we don't start somewhere, it ain't never going to happen. That's what I think.
On that note, there's also some research that I'm sure you've heard in the news. There's bicycle crashes, fatalities happen, but if you adjust for the risk when you incorporate design, enforcement, education, the risk goes down. So you have more bike infrastructure, more people cycling, but kind of less crashes per capita.
Right, so I'm good.
It looks wonderful.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you.
How hard is it going to be to get a light on 100?
Oh yes. So I was starting to say, so the curb cuts, light on Route 100. We've submitted, not the curb cuts, but we submitted some of these plans that Sam Schwartz had put out there for us as design concepps to the county, to the DOT. That was, I think, part of the comment cards. We said, please consider these comments, please consider these designs as you're crafting this Empire State Trail and making it more accessible, safer for everybody to access these different roads. So we're hopeful that we continue to push the state and the county to remember, and Newcastle is very much focused on that 133 100 connection. I know Briarcliff is also interested in the Chappaqua Road I'm sorry.
100 Chapco Road. 100.
No, 100, 133 for Newcastle. They're particularly interested in that. Not that they're not interested in North State Road either, but everybody, has their sort of pet intersection that they're concerned with. And we think that, again, with the wayfinding, businesses were overall generally positive about the bike lane, most concerned about safety and, making sure that, concerned with the truck traffic. And that was it, but basically supportive. So.
Yeah, and up on the screen we have an example. We have an example comment up on the screen, and the gist of this is that this resident agrees with the crosswalk concept. That on the left here, the DOT concept doesn't currently have one. So when we were at the Earth Day event, we got some great feedback where residents were really clamoring for safety, i.e. crosswalks, and sometimes the traffic lights.
Everybody else good with this?
One step at a time.
Exactly.
We don't have public comment on this, and I really don't want to accept public comment. But since you're on our planning board, okay, Gareth, go ahead. Come on up.
Come up.
Come on up. You got to come up.
Sorry to be having my
Gareth
back
is going to come
facing
and
you
talk
the
to
whole
us
time.
about the next item on our work session agenda. So because you're about to talk to us anyway, and you've waited
Right.
so long and so patiently,
Thank you.
and you're on our planning board, hi.
Hi. Just a quick question. I was wondering if, as part of this process, you've characterized the storm drains along the route for bike friendliness. As a biker, there are big differences between, the kind that are crosshatched and the kind that are sort of long and slim, which catch your tire. So I was just wondering.
Yeah, that's a great question. First off, sorry if I had my back facing you the whole time. We actually at our office, our team talked a lot about this, where you might see some streets around different towns have kind of a wide gap in the grates for the water to rush through. And of course, if you're going over on a bike, that might be a hazard. So we had our civil design team take a look at some of the existing stormwater infrastructure. And I believe, I can't speak fully on it, but I think that it was bicycle friendly. And if it turns out, I'll look at it back at my office, and it turns out if some of these grates are too wide of a gap, that we can definitely report back to you all, because there are companies that we've worked with that do make bicycle friendly infrastructure grates. But I think we are covered for North State Road because of course the bike lanes are on the side in the short term. The long term solution where we're moving curbs, that won't be an issue because we're starting fresh. But for the time being, super important thing to keep in mind. So thank you.
Yeah, on page 5 you have the existing catch basin type, and you have it. It stays the same in the proposed condition. So I'm guessing that means they've looked at it and it's okay.
Exactly. And good reminder because, for example, on page 1, note the top right corner as well as the bottom right corner, right before the title block. You see that one storm grate is actually off the bike lane because of its, the way that the street curves. So some of these drains we won't have to worry about in the first place.
Okay. Yeah. Good? Oh, I think you said but. Okay. Thank you so much, Zeke. Thanks so much for coming up. We really appreciate it. And for all the work that you've done working together with our task force and our many stakeholders and your patience. And we appreciate it. And coming out to Earth Day was fantastic. And I think we got to learn a little bit more about Osley. And, we're still trying to get you to move up here. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's been really great getting to know the town, getting to know you all. And I really appreciate, all this great teamwork that we've had with the town, with you, with Victoria. It's been a great process, and I have business cards here if anybody is interested.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And, Victoria Caffarelli, did you have anything you wanted to add? All right, no. Okay, thank you. Thanks also for all your work on this. Okay, so next up we have our tree bank fund. Is that right? Okay. I don't know where my work session notes are, but okay. We discussed at our last work session the suggested $165 per caliper inch to be added to the fee schedule for our tree bank. We had adopted a local law, I think in 2017. And upon consideration, it seemed that the town board was generally in favor of what might be considered a somewhat steep cost, but some like it. And subsequent to that, I did receive some feedback, just sort of anecdotally, from some planning board members that the fee, might be a little high, but that might not be so bad, but also that it might act that high as disincentive for those looking to add solar panels to their rooftops, where it might involve cutting a tree down or so to make it financially feasible for them to add the solar to the rooftops. So I had asked Gareth Huffam, who sits on our planning board, if he could share a few of his thoughts on this subject, even though I know he's not going to say, I don't represent the planning board and the planning board hasn't discussed this. But again, I think that it's somewhat indicative of what a couple of members of the planning board had shared with me. And I don't think we've received any formal comments from the planning board, since it's just something to be added to our fee schedule. It's not normally something that we would have bounced to the planning board, but we appreciate that you're all thoughtful about this and want to share your comments.
Thank you.
Hi, Gareth.
Hi, Gareth Huffam, 53 Old Albany Post Road, Ossining. I did just want to share a few thoughts about the tree bank fee schedule. As you mentioned, I'm speaking as an individual, not as a planning board member, but I am on the planning board and find that this issue comes up quite frequently. So I'm very pleased that the town board is getting close to passing a fee schedule and implementing the policy. That'll really help a lot of the development issues that come up. Regarding the fee, proposed fee of $165 per caliper inch, to me that sounds about right. It's high enough that it's a disincentive to wantonly, cut trees down, but low enough that it's not, horribly burdensome in those cases where it's necessary. I think my personal opinion is that it's a good number. I would like to make a suggestion, though, for the board to consider, and that is, as Dana mentioned, that in cases where a homeowner or a private homeowner of existing homes would like to put a solar panel system on their roof or elsewhere on their property, and in those cases where the area that they want to target is shaded by a tree or two or maybe three, I would like to suggest that the fee be waived in that case, in those cases, so that it doesn't act as a disincentive to putting on the solar system. Thankfully, solar systems have been coming down in price over the last decade, but they are still quite expensive, and the payback time is still quite long. So if we can, not increase the financial burden with this fee schedule, I think it would be a really good thing.
And the suggestion is not for solar developers who might look at clear cutting. It's more for specifically for rooftop
For existing homes.
for existing homes.
Absolutely.
So single
Only
family
for
homes?
yeah, only for existing homes. I'm not sure I would limit it to single family, but only for existing. And for developers, they should pay full fare. And certainly in cases where there are many trees, a small forest, as some proposals have come forward with, they should pay full fare. There's a lot of ecological services that the trees are providing, all of which are really worth paying for, essentially. So that was it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I mean, I know personally, I had balancing act that I had with my own home, because I had a beautiful tree in my backyard, and I still wanted to put solar panels on my house, but there was no way that it really made a whole heck of a lot of sense. The tree was dying, and at some point I really did need to take the tree down, but the tree provided so much shade to my house that it almost didn't seem worth taking the tree down to then put solar panels up. So
They
I think
save a
that-
lot of money in AC costs for sure. Yep.
Absolutely. And I really miss that tree a lot. But now that the tree did die, that was, then incentive to relook at the solar panels. So it's a balancing act. I mean, I'm not sure that that's the best thing to do, is to cut trees down to put up solar panels. However, I think that there are instances where it might make sense, and it depends again on what your electric costs are and how many trees you have and a whole lot of other things. So,
Yeah, so I mean, I think, 1 or 2 trees, I mean, would probably be my limit. If you have to take down more than that, you can start paying. But I'm okay
That
with
sounds reasonable to me. Yeah.
yeah,
Very
I'm
small
okay
number.
with
I think it should be limited to a
Yeah,
small number as
absolutely.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't just clear our yard because we want to.
Right.
And in my case, I have huge trees, which so sadly I'm not getting solar panels. So I don't really have a problem with that. What I would like to rediscuss among the board and ask your opinion while you're standing here is one of the towns that we looked at their fee schedule for the tree bank was, I think it was like 400 and something dollars for a old growth tree, but it lowered the smaller circumference trees down to 100. And I'm wondering if that is maybe something we should think about, because that way, if somebody's developing a single family home, they might slide the home over on the lot to preserve the old growth tree, as opposed to just it being how many inches of tree are you taking down? Or do you think that they're going to avoid the old growth tree because it's just that many inches anyway?
Well, they might avoid the old growth tree anyway because they're beautiful and they're property value enhancing and so forth.
That's not necessarily how developers think, but okay.
No, developers, they want to put it wherever it's easiest. I agree with you. And anything that we can do to incentivize keeping old growth, trees, trees of note, I would certainly support. I don't know if it becomes more complicated to implement.
That would be my concern.
Okay.
That
Then
have to
again,
go out and measure
how
all
old
that's
is
my only.
old, how wide is wide,
Okay.
Yeah, right. How old is old? And that's a question in forestry.
Right.
And typically, an old growth tree is considered between 120 and 150 years old. Well, actually, I need to clarify that. An old growth forest is considered between 120 and 150 years old, that has been undisturbed for that entire period. So you could apply the same time period to a single tree in a developed area like ours, and that's probably a reasonable definition. But I think there are quite a few trees around in Westchester County that are that old, and they're beautiful and they're worth saving. So I wouldn't object to a plan, the sliding scale or a stepped scale like that, if it could be made simple, logistically feasible. Yeah.
well, our planner is the one who recommended coming up with this average, and I'm guessing that that was based on his knowledge of how the planning board operates to a certain extent, and how easy or difficult it would be. We could surely bounce it back for some feedback on that stepped schedule again. If
Yeah,
you want to. I just don't want to take forever to get to the end.
No,
screen here,
I'm,
because
I mean,
think that
I'm okay sticking with 165. I was
Well-
just trying to process,
what we could certainly
what
do.
would preserve the bigger trees.
What we could certainly do is try the average and see if we get, what happens with it. And then if we have a lot of difficulty or, pushback, to the extent that, it's becoming burdensome or difficult for a variety of reasons, or we feel like it's not accomplishing the ultimate goals, then hopefully we could get some feedback from our planner and the planning board about that, so that we could reevaluate.
Wouldn't we need to have, was it an arborist or whatever you call them,
Yes.
and building inspector before we take down any tree?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's critical. And of course, you'd have to ensure that the trees they were taking down really were, in the case of the waiving of the fee that I was talking about, that it was going to be for the solar
So for
the solar
instance, if
system
a
in
tree-
question. So they couldn't use that as an excuse. We're putting a solar system over here, but we'd love to take that tree down over there, so you can't do that. So an arborist or the building department would
So just going to bounce to
confirm
council on
that.
this, since what we're trying to do is adopt a fee schedule specifically, and we're not changing the local law. Is there some way that we could word the $165 per caliper inch, except for removal of 1 to 2 trees, subject to blah blah blah?
Well, what I was looking at while you guys were talking is that the provision in the chapter of the code that deals with trees provides that the payment into the tree bank fund is required in connection with all subdivision and site plan applications. And it seems to me that based upon looking at the solar code that was enacted at the end of last year, is that what we're talking about here for an exemption would be the tier 1 solar energy systems, which are the roof mounted solar energy systems and the building integrated solar energy systems. And those don't require subdivision or site plan approval.
Okay,
So the way I'm, and there may be exceptions, and I'm just thinking about this big picture, but it seems like for the most part, because then you have the tier 2 solar energy systems, ground mounted systems also. So I think if you're talking about roof mounted systems, the general rule is going to be site plan approval is not required, in which case the provision of the tree bank fund is not applicable. And so they would just have to go through the normal process in the tree code of getting a permit, which is through the building inspector.
Okay, great. And then that requires the arborist to determine, et cetera, et cetera.
So
Okay.
I'm just doing this
Well-
on the fly because this is the first time I've heard this. So I'd like the opportunity and to look into it just a little bit more, but that was
Okay.
just my initial reaction that for the most part, it seems that probably wouldn't be an issue to begin with.
All right.
There may be cases though where the homeowner would want to have a ground-based system, but that is being shaded significantly by 1 or 2 trees.
And that may be a
So-
different situation. And so, we may have to look at how the code is currently defined and in what circumstances the tree bank fund would be invoked and if we need to address that. But just looking at it right now on the spot, it seems like at least for the roof mounted, and yes, if it's ground mounted, then it has to exceed 900 square feet.
And at that point, I think they should pay.
So those are just there's other considerations besides what is a very good idea in order to encourage solar, but may not be an issue or may just require some further thought into how to move forward with that.
I love issues that take care of themselves.
Okay. Thank you so much, Garrett.
Thank you
for
very
coming out
much.
tonight. Thank you. Your input, we appreciate it. Okay, so next up, we would like to invite our town comptroller, Tom Warren, to speak with us about a proposal from Edmunds, a company that the Village of Ossining has proposed to work with to replace our current financial software. You may remember that a few years ago, we implemented the Munis software along with the Village of Ossining, with whom we contract for financial and IT services. Unfortunately, despite all of our best efforts, Munis was not such a good fit for Ossining, and we have been discussing a move to something that serves our collective needs better. Many town and village staff members got a chance to learn more about Edmunds, and the reactions were largely positive. So it sounds like a direction that we are considering. I think the village took that up at their work session, perhaps last meeting, and town board has copies of the proposal before them. I expect they may have questions for you, Tom, following this meeting. So please also, if you could, discuss a timeline of what the village is considering and when you need an answer from us. Okay.
Before you begin, I have the copies right here, but I realize that these are I'm not sure if this is the most up-to-date one. This is your memo from July 25th. Is that?
That would be the most recent one.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure before I handed it out.
that was after we had met with the village board and they had some concerns that we went back and looked at.
Hold,
no.
please.
First, very briefly, we've been with KVS, using KVS as our primary software going back to at least 1990, and we're still using the same, I don't know, I call it a DOS environment software for payroll and tax collection, and in the village we're also using it for our water utility billing. In about 2003 or thereabouts, KVS came out with a GUI interface that made it look more Windows environment for general ledger and accounts payable. And in about 2013 or 14, KVS was partnering with Springbrook to introduce a Windows environment for tax collection, water billing, and payroll. And we were looking at that. Unfortunately, they had a lot of problem converting KVS customers to Springbrook in the Westchester County area. And also KVS has been sold and sold again, and I think they may have been sold a third time. So they've been cutting way back. And so, you know, it seemed like the opportune moment for us when a former village manager had suggested that we go with Munis. There was a big rush to sign the contract. It was a very unfavorable contract for the village. It basically provided for payment of the entire software within 6 months. 25% was due upon signing of the contract, and then 60% was due upon the availability of the software, which, when you know, it was available the very next day. So almost immediately, we had committed 85% of the software license. And then, as I said, the balance was due within 6 months. All the while, during, most of this was before we even had our kickoff meeting in March 2016. And then during all of 2016, we were working on the conversion and implementation to Munis. And we had a lot of problems that year. The biggest of which was, because, Munis has a system where they, take, very slow measures to make sure everything is right, to develop a chart of accounts that's going to be systematic and meet the needs of both the town and the village, especially because we were working off of one shared database, which we learned that that's probably not a good thing to do. So we've told Edmonds that we want to go to 2 separate databases because we are 2 separate employers, and it's important to keep the data separated. But during this process, we had about 3,300 different individual accounts, balance sheet accounts, revenue accounts, and expenditure accounts to convert from our KVS system to this new Munis system. And out of the 3,300, they lost 1,200 during the conversion. And we, tried to get them to do it again. They refused to. So my deputy, Dale Ferreira, spent an extraordinary amount of time to try to get these 1,200 additional accounts established in the system. And then the next step was to start bringing in prior year data from 2014 and 15 and 16 so that we could run budget reports and have historical fiscal year summary totals. And during that process, there were 600 errors because the chart of accounts was incomplete. So it was a very, very trying time. I have to give a lot of credit to Dale for all the work that she did that allowed us to be live January 1st, 2017. We got all the prior year data in, and we got the chart of accounts. We still don't have this cross-reference table, which was part of the process to allow us to, like, currently when we're running our payroll on KVS, this cross-reference table would automatically take the data and put it in the right format to upload to Munis. Well, we still don't have that, so we've had to develop our own workarounds. So it's been difficult. It's been an unpopular software with the users, which mostly, other than in finance, most of the users are in the departments where they're entering accounts payable, vouchers, and such. We've also found that there's been very poor customer service and a lack of timely support. Once we were live, Dale decided that, you know what, it was probably best not to use Munis for conversion and implementation of the next module, which is going to be payroll. So Dale built all the payroll data herself, and we were set to go on July 1st, 2017. But talking to the village manager at the time, we held off on converting that, and eventually, I think it was early this year, we actually made a decision that Munis just wasn't for us, and so we canceled the implementation for the next three big modules, which is going to be payroll, taxes, and for the village water utility. Over the past 2 years, we've been looking at a couple of different accounting systems, and we've decided that we like Edmunds and Associates software best. They're actually relatively local. They're based in New Jersey, unlike Munis that was based in Maine. And every week when we had some on-site implementation, somebody would be driving down from Maine, so we're paying the mileage, we're paying the hotels. One time they actually sent somebody who flew in from Detroit down to LaGuardia, rented a car, and then stayed up here for the week. And that got very, very costly with these implementation and conversion fees. With Edmunds, because they're local, the contract cost includes a certain number of implementation days that will be on site, and there'll also be some days that will be on webinars. So there's no surprise on the cost of the implementation. When we first went to the village board, and Edmunds had presented us a contract estimated at about $240,000. Immediately when we looked at it, we decided that there's at least $40,000 in conversion services that we didn't need because we don't really want to convert payroll historical data over to Edmunds if we have to gather information for the retirement system, we're going to go straight to the source that we know that the information is accurate on, and not worry about using information that was converted that might have an error in it. And so it just doesn't make sense to convert payroll data or general ledger. The only data that we decided that we would convert over would be some of the payroll setup data, like the employee names and such. And most of the money would be spent on implementation, or I'm sorry, the conversion of data for utility billing, so that when we send out a water bill, it already, right from the very first water bill the customers received is going to have historical information on it, and also the property tax. We felt that that was important to bring over at least the unpaid taxes at the time that we go live. And then the other big concern that the village board had, and certainly we had it as well, and I even told you about the story with Munis contract that basically required all the fees to be paid up front. We did go back to the company, and they were agreeable to have the fees split over a 3-year period of time. So that way we're not making a big investment on something that hasn't been proven that it's going to be working. We have confidence in the company. We spent a lot of time doing our research on this company. As you had mentioned, we had the 2-day training session for the department clerks and others that were interested, where they could actually look, get a visual look and explanation of the software. And we actually had a laboratory set up where they could actually sit and enter data so that we could actually see what it would look like. And so I think that's where we are now. We did go back and take a second look at what was being proposed. We took out one thing that we didn't think that we would need at this time that can be added at a future date. And we also decided that some of the additional conversion costs that were in the original proposal wouldn't be needed. So now we're down to about $172,000 on the capital portion of the contract. That includes the software license and training, as well as minor costs for the IT to connect the users and to the cloud, and also the conversion, which is gone from $106,000 down to $40,000, which, as I said, was taxes and water mostly, and a little bit for payroll. The village board has, given us tentative approval. We've been looking at the contract. Stuart is looking at it. I gave him some suggestions of things that I'm looking for in the contract, and it's our understanding that if the town is interested in continuing to partner with us on the accounting system, that the town was going to be a partner in the contract as well, and that we'd be given the contract to Christy to look over if she has any changes as well. And then the other thing you asked about was the implementation. We had a very long conversation with two of the implementation and conversion specialists at Edmunds, and we used an assumed contract date of September 1st so that they could look at things going forward. Certainly after the contract is signed, then they need to fit it in the queue. But currently, based on the way things look now, with contracts that are being received now, they thought that we would be live with general ledger and budgeting and accounts payable April 1st, 2020. Unfortunately, that was bad timing for us because we're in the midst of audit. So for us, we will look at June 1st, 2024, going live with that module and the water and that would also include payroll. And then water and taxes would be around August 1st. But the fact that we are, for the village, we issue one tax bill in December that's payable in January and July. So we would use the tax module just for query purposes of whatever's unpaid as of like August 1st. And then the town would probably go live with town and county tax bills in April 2021, possibly with school taxes the prior September, but we weren't really sure, but it would be available.
And in terms of the timing, I think you just said September is when you were hoping to have contracts finalized and so approval at the end of August. Is that what you're suggesting?
Back at the time that we were first looking at this, and I would say that that was probably 3 weeks ago now, we were using September 1st as a tentative date, since the sales rep was, saying, if you get a contract in, maybe you can go live by January 1st, but, that's when we sat down with the implementation team and we talked about it. and we just used October or September 1st as a start date. You know, if it's not ready by September 1st, then that go live date would be delayed a little bit. But as I said, since April 1st seems to be bad timing for us with the audit, you know, that does give us a couple of extra months in order to be live January or July 1st.
So, Holly has looked at it, and we actually, the village manager, Karen DeTore, and I have set up a meeting with department heads in the village and town for this
Thursday afternoon.
Just to make sure that everybody's on the same page with this, and if in fact that's the case, our next step is just to figure out what an equitable parsing out of expenses for the capital costs would be. We know we have a few bucks left in the capital project for.
I think it was about $36,000 that's set aside from the Munis contract that hasn't been spent yet.
And do we anticipate that we might be seeing any money back from Tyler at all?
We're hopeful. The village board passed a resolution authorizing the village to sign or to sue Tyler in order to get back some of our fees. And Stewart, you know, did address that sort of at the village board meeting, because certainly the village trustees are asking. It's in litigation and it takes time.
So maybe just we'll have some further conversation about that, and then we're just again looking for an equitable split that makes sense for any of the modules that we might use more, or any modules the village might use more, and figure out how that would all parse out, and then hopefully we can come back with a recommendation and a resolution in the near, not too distant future. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dale, thank you too.
Yeah, of course.
Every day.
Okay, so finally, work session topic number 4 for this evening, I think. Dog park local law. Is there any further discussion by town board members? Mr. Wilcher? No. I kind of start with you, just in case, because I know you would like to get a word in edgewise on that one. Okay.
I'm just waiting to hear back from the village and to hear the rest of that conversation about how it's going to work between, the two villages and the town and the tags and, that whole, I think that's an important part of it. So I think the law, we haven't obviously had a lot more feedback. Have you received any letters? So I think it's really just codifying the rules that have been in place. But the logistics I'd like to hear more about before we actually codify it.
Okay.
Put on it.
That? Might I have a motion to go into a very short executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All those very reluctantly in favor. Aye. Anybody super duper opposed? Oh, sorry. This is for personnel and advice of counsel. Okay. With that, I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. And as we wrap up our summer, our board meeting schedule changes a bit. Next week, Tuesday, August 13th, we will not have any meetings scheduled. And our following meeting, the following Tuesday, August 20th, we have a work session scheduled for back here at 16 Croton. So I hope you enjoy these next and last few weeks of summer, and make sure that you attend all of the wonderful events that we have going on. Don't forget about Coasty and tomorrow at Playland. I know Coaster is his given name.
His given name.
I don't know if any of the town board members want to join me tomorrow, but I'm gonna try to show up at Playland early in the opening time, maybe shortly. I have a meeting on battery storage with NYSERDA tomorrow, but if anybody's interested in joining me for lunch and ride on Dragon Coaster, let me know. I'm hoping to be around noon. Okay? With that, good night, everybody. Great.
Hey.